Okay. Hello, everybody, and welcome to Zinkuthela Wena. We continue with music in Africa with Mr. Arnold Maimonegala. Welcome back, Mr.
Oh, thank you, thank you. Yes. So we are continuing, right?
Arnold. Last
Sorry.
time we spoke about the sun's instrument that has variations across southern and eastern Africa. Is Liberia in eastern Africa?
Across Africa, yes.
Yes.
Southern, yes,
Yes.
yeah. South. And then we also spoke about how Sufism developed some new
Genres.
genres.
Yes.
Yes, in Africa, yes. So another instrument, since we are now speaking of instruments and genres and dances, so another instrument found in African communities is what is referred to in English as the lute. The lute. I don't know how they pronounce it. Lute or lute.
Okay.
Yes. So a lute is a plucked string instrument with a neck and a deep round back.
Okay.
Like a guitar. If I can put it like that, that way, you see, a guitar is a plucked instrument with a neck. There's a neck with
Yes.
a string, and then there's a round, and there's a round back.
Yeah.
So the instrument that I am talking about, the instruments I'm talking about right now, are instruments which are similar to a guitar.
Okay.
To make it easier. Yes. So I'll do my best to explain the types of instruments I am talking about.
Yes.
Yes. So in the examples of this type of instrument, there's what called hunting. So an acting is a lute which is played by the Jole people of Senegal, Gambia, and Guinea-Bissau.
Okay.
And then another example called Buchundu. A Buchundu is played by the Majang people of Gambia and Guinea-Bissau. So you can see that this type of an instrument is very common in the Senegambia and Guinea-Bissau. Okay. So I can say that that's where maybe it originates from. Yes. So there's that kind of instrument. We are going to talk about that later. There's a reason why I am telling you about this type of instrument, the lute. Yes, it's different, and how it is developed in different ways in the Senegambia and Guinea-Bissau. Yes, and then speaking of dancing again, in belly dancing, right? There is a dance. There's a dance move called a shimmy. Do you know a shimmy?
Where in belly dancing?
Yes, there's a dance move called a shimmy.
I think I have an idea what it looks. What?
Okay, so it is a rhythmic shaking of the body.
Okay.
And unfortunately, I can't show you. But the shaking can be applied in a specific area. For example, let's say in the hips.
Okay.
Like, okay, just picture yourself seeing a belly dancer, right?
Okay, yeah.
Do you see her shaking her hips?
Okay, we'll put something to all
in a rhythmic
instruments and the dance.
Yes, do you see her shaking her hips in a rhythmic way? So it's called a shimmy. So it's like it's other body parts they sort of freeze, and then there's this specific part which shakes, and it makes you to specifically be attracted to that part. And in most cases, it is this type of parts which are associated with this part which is called gynecology, right?
Okay.
parts like the hips, the buttocks, if I can put it that way.
Okay.
Yes. So it's a flirtatious movement, which can sometimes be seen as the sexual role playing.
Okay.
I am trying to give you the picture.
Okay.
So
Put some links, maybe
yes,
videos and
yes.
okay.
So it is associated with fertility. Do you remember we said the Shemites they used to they used to dance this type of dancing called belly dancing today or oriental, right?
Yes.
So I'm trying to give you a certain move, and it also comes from the fact that, like as you said, that belly dancing was a magical ritual. You see, so fertility, is associated with the sexual intercourse. You see, so this is why there is this sort of a dance which can be, I don't know, should I say sexually provocative,
Yeah,
or a
maybe.
dance move.
Yes.
Yes, like that. And these kind of dances again, the other reason why I'm telling you this, these do you remember when I was telling you about the initiation schools, when
Yes.
we were discussing about puberty rights in Africa?
Yes.
Do you remember?
Yes.
Yes. So there's a time when I spoke about Chisamba dance. Do you remember
Yes.
Chisamba?
Yes.
What did they say? Okay, I say it is being danced in Malawi, right?
Yes.
During initiation schools,
Yes.
and it's a sexual role playing. You remember, it's a rhythmic sexual role playing. Yes.
Yes.
So see that what I'm trying to show you is that this kind of dance moves, which are sort of like a sexual role playing, you
Yes.
know, they have got a religious backing. Sorry, they've got a religious background, and they also have got the background of initiation schools. You see, that's the kind of yes. So those kind of dances, in many cases, they were not being done. They were not being done in public initially. They were not being done in public
Okay. They
because
were
sexual intercourse is not done in public. You see, so when someone is praying for fertility in the ancient Egyptian temples, she has to be in a conducive environment where she has to perform a sexual ritual. You see,
okay.
and someone in the initiation schools who is trying to learn about sexual intercourse, which is part of adulthood,
Yes.
she has to learn it in a private environment. You see,
Environment. Yes.
yes, yes. So, and the reason why again this type of dancing was also done in female initiation schools is because fertility also is part of adulthood. You see, so in a way they'll be being taught about adulthood as
Yes.
much as adulthood is also being is also an issue, or was an issue in temples. You see,
Okay.
yes. So I am just trying to show you why people dance like that and
Yes.
where it is
And
coming from.
where it
Yes,
was danced.
yes, yes, yes. So many aspects of African music were transported, right, to the Americas with Africans who were taken as slaves. So musically, uh, this caused the spreading of African music,
Okay.
which now comes in different forms, and has also affected in different ways, and developed
Into
different
all sorts of genres.
meanings. Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah.
yes. So let me just give you a few examples, or let me just give you examples. Um, Africans who became slaves in Brazil, especially those from Angola, You know, they created a variant of a musical bow set to the one in Africa. So in Angola, especially in southwest Angola, a musical musical bow is called a mbulumbumba. You know, that's how I say it in Ndebele is called umqangana, right?
Yeah.
So in Angola it's called mbulumbumba.
Okay.
So they took that kind of music or they took that kind of instrument. So when they were there in Brazil, they used the trees there or the sticks there in Brazil to come up with this instrument they were playing while they were in Africa. You see, so they called it berimbau, berimbau. So in Brazil there is a musical ball called berimbau.
Okay.
It originates from Mbulumbumba in Angola. You see, and if you remember when we were speaking of religions in Africa, I said there's a secretized religion in Brazil that was formed by African slaves and slaves called Candomblé. Do you remember? I said that, yes. Where I said even Oshun, they call this Oshun, they now call her Oxu or Oxu, you know. Yes. So this instrument, the berimbau, is also used in the in the Candomblé religion.
Okay.
You see, so they syncretized this religion with Catholicism. So they syncretized African religion with Catholicism, and they put an African instrument. You see, yes. And then another example. Do you remember I spoke of chanting and the clapping of hands and getting to a trance? Do you remember? I spoke of that. So that spiritual element or those spiritual elements, or should I say the spiritual musical elements which are done during worshiping, you know, like the chanting, the clapping, you know, all kind of things.
Yeah.
They created a new genre in the United States of America among slaves, African slaves, a new genre called spirituals. Spirituals, that's what it's called. From the fact that they're from the African spirituality.
Yeah.
Yes. So they're also called some they also called them Negro spirituals.
Okay.
Yes. Or field holders. They're also called field holders. So why they're called field holders is because they sang them. They sang this the songs found in this genre as they told tone and other plants, you know, in the plantations.
Okay.
So yes. So these spirituals or these field holders gave them the strength, you know, to have hope, you know, and to survive through slavery. You see, so you see now, African musical elements also helped our African brothers who went as slaves, you know, to manage to survive, you know, because music also gives you a therapeutic effect. You see,
Isn't
or
it
a
also to
therapeutic
do with that? Let's say, like people are when even in Africa, when we are working in fields or doing some kind of task, people start singing.
Yes.
And well, at least when I was growing up, when we were younger, I grew up
Yes.
in the rural parts of Africa. So when we were working in
Yes.
fields, people would sing. You know, somebody would start a song at the far end, and then Just continued. Just to keep
Yeah,
the time.
that yes, that also can be the reason. But now the reason why they call them spiritual. Okay, let me give you. Okay, I'm got something, and I think what I'm going to say is also going to answer what you just said, right?
Okay.
Okay, so you know, African slaves were forcibly taught about Christianity and about Jesus.
Okay. Yes.
As a way to make them be docile, so
Submissive.
that they don't fight against their masters.
Mm-hmm.
And they managed to adopt Christianity
Mm-hmm.
because when they pictured this Jesus in Christianity, they they saw someone who was like in their situation, you see,
Okay.
because Jesus suffered, according to the Bible, and they were also suffering, you see.
Okay.
But now, um, now they now fused the spirituals. They fused
Okay.
the spirituals, or this genre called the spirituals,
With
with this
Christian.
Jesus,
Okay.
you see. And what came out is a new genre called gospel music. That's where gospel music came about.
Came from. Okay.
So now, why am I saying this again? I'm also trying to answer what you said.
Okay.
Yes, in Africa, when people are planting, they also sing, which is very true. But now the spirituals are a sort of singing which is highly associated with the religion. You
Yes.
see, it's highly associated with religion because unlike in Africa where people are singing unlike in Africa where people are singing as a discipline, as a way of encouraging them to work. African slaves were forced to work, unlike in Africa. So in Africa, when people sing whilst they planting, or they are cultivating, they are not really in pain. So
No, no,
the
no.
type of
I was
music,
saying, I was saying that it's probably something that they took with them. That this is what they were doing before. Like when you are doing
yes,
laborious work,
yes, yes,
you
yes,
pass time by, or you enjoy using music.
yes, I do agree with you. I do agree with you.
Yes.
And then I'm also saying that yes, but the spirituals, I just want to emphasize
Yes.
that
Absolutely.
in Africa that is done, and then the African slaves, as much as they were also singing, as much as they were singing, as in Africa they were singing when they were planting. This
Yes.
time they were singing, at least they were in pain. They were
Yeah.
not really enjoying the singing, you see.
Yes.
So these spirituals, they're also called the songs, you see. So now, instead instead of singing a song which is highly associated with planting, they
Mm.
were singing songs which are highly associated with religion, because they
Okay.
use their faith to manage to survive.
Yes.
Not They were trying to be depressed. Yes,
Yes.
so that's why they call them the spirituals,
Yes.
because the spirituals, they were sort of spiritual music, but being done in imitation. You see,
Okay.
yes, and that gave birth to what we call today gospel music.
Yes.
So this is why, and you will notice that this is why in African American churches, they claim even that in African churches, they clap hands. Sometimes they fall into a trance. They are not like these kind of mainstream churches where people they are so there is little movement. They they do like this that It's Africanism, yes. And their music, their gospel is spiritual. There's a lot of movement.
Yeah.
It's unfortunate that I can't sing. Yes, yes.
Example,
Sorry.
We'll put links to maybe YouTube or Facebook for some of the music.
Example, swing low, sweet those kind of songs. Comfort to carry me home. You see, those kind of songs. And then so this is what I want people to know. So gospel music is actually a fusion of African religious music and Christianity. You see, that's gospel music.
Yes.
You see, yes. Or should I say that's how gospel music came about?
Yes.
There was a syncretization of African religion music and Jesus. This Jesus that they were being taught about, yes.
Okay.
And later, or should I say, there was a time when they also rejoiced, because they were trying to be strong. So the gospel songs that, or should I say, the spirituals that they were singing when they were rejoicing, they are being referred to as the jubilees. Yeah. Okay. So that's how jubilees came about. Yes. Okay. So besides gospel music, the spirituals or the Negro spirituals also gave birth to a new genre called blues.
Okay.
This is why blues is primarily vocal and song based. So blues began in plantations, or should I say in the southern colonies of the United States of America. So blues, when blues started, there were sort of songs again, there were songs which are so spiritual, yes. Yeah.
Okay. Yes. So that's what was exported to the Americas.
There are so many. Okay,
yes,
let me just
I understand. Just a few. Yeah, just a few examples of what was.
Yes. So do you see that gospel music is actually a product of African religion music, which was refined through the use of Jesus, through the use of the name Jesus Christ.
Okay.
You see?
Yeah.
Yes. And then another example, do you remember I told you about the lute or those type of instruments that looks like a guitar, right? And there is the accounting, is the puchundu, those yes. So the African slaves who were taken from Senegambia and Guinea-Bissau, they also created that kind of instrument again in the USA during slavery. Yeah. So they created a kind of that instrument. It looks like a guitar, and they called it a banjo. That's how how they called it, banjo. Yes. So it's just a variant of an lute, yes. Yes.
Okay.
And they took this banjo, or they took this African lute,
Yes.
and they put it in blues, you see, in blues music. So one of the first instrument of blues music was an African called a banjo. A banjo is in, you can check it on it. It's BANJO. Just look at how it is. Yes, it's a banjo. Yes, and then they also use this banjo in a genre that became known as banjo rhythms. They are called banjo rhythms because they were using a banjo, or some call it folk music.
Okay.
Folk as in FOK, folk music. Yes. So this banjo rhythm, it evolved into a new genre called ragtime music.
Okay.
You see, so you see now it's now, so it became it started from African religious music, and then it went to spirituals or necro spirituals,
Yes.
and then it went to blues, and then it went to gospel music,
Yes.
and then it went to banjo rhythms, and now it's now ragtime music. See that it's now developing.
Yes.
And this banjo again was later played by the piano in ragtime music. So before a piano in ragtime music, there was an African instrument being used, a banjo.
Okay.
And as years went by, ragtime was also fused with blues music to come up with a new genre called jazz music.
Okay.
See, so that's how jazz music came about. It was, so ragtime is a project of African religious music. Blues is a project of African religious music. In other words, jazz is a full product of African, or should I say, jazz is a full product of African music. You see,
Okay.
which was refined in the USA by the African slaves.
Okay.
You see, and jazz is primarily instrumental and tune based, meaning that that is why they were using the banjo. So the banjo is the one which was the jazz to be so instrumental and tune based. This is why the banjo was replaced by another instrument more than the vocals.
Okay.
It was replaced by um, the guitar. As time went by, it was replaced by the guitar and the piano, as I have said. So famous jazz musicians, they included Louis Armstrong and Jelly Roll Morton. You see, yeah. So in the 1940s, jazz, blues, spirituals, and gospel music were all together to come up with a new genre again called R&B. That
Okay.
is rhythm and blues. You see, so R&B is a product of African music, if I can put it that way. And in the 1950s, R&B was fused with gospel music to come up with a new genre again called soul music. So
Okay.
that's how soul music came about. You
Yes.
see, and the pioneer of soul music, they include Ray Charles. You see, but in soul, I like Barry White. I don't know, who do you like?
Uh,
Barry White.
I like everything. Rachel, very white.
Wow. Yes. Okay. So jazz and R&B were fused again to come up with a new genre called rock and roll. So that's how rock and roll about, meaning that it's a full product of African music.
Yes.
You see, and examples of rock and roll musician, there is Chuck Berry, and sorry.
I said okay.
He's referred to as the father of rock and roll.
Yes.
And rock and roll is the one that gave birth to rock music. Now there's metal rock, which means metal is actually a product of African music. And another project of rock and roll is pop music. You see?
Yes.
So in other words, rock music and pop music have got roots in Africa.
Yes.
You see? And jazz was exported to Africa, and it was warmly welcomed because Africans in Africa, they feel that Africanness in jazz. They could sense that this is our music. As much as it was refined, they could feel it, that it came from them. This is their music. This is why they took it as their own music. They embraced it, to a point that they developed it. They modified it into a subgenre called Afro-Jazz. Okay. So that's how Afro-Jazz came about. Yes. So Afro-Jazz musicians we have in Africa included Kofi Kanapa.
Okay.
He's from Ghana. Here in Bulawayo, we have got the Kulkrunas. The Kulkrunas, yes.
Okay.
And then in South Africa, we had musicians like Yuma Segela, Pops Mohammed, Abdullah Ibrahim, and Don Laga. Sorry?
Dollar brand.
I didn't hear. Yes. There are so many. Yes. So Kofi Kanapa is referred to as the topaz because he can manage to play the drum with his hands and with his feet. Okay. And Don Laga also became one of the pioneers of a South African genre called Kwaito. So he was one of those, you see. So you see how African music is now developing other genres. As much as jazz was influenced by African music, jazz also influenced other new genres in Africa, like Kwaito. Like as I said, that Don Laka was in jazz, but later he pioneered Kwaito, and also Laka he also pioneered, or should I say, he was also involved in Afropop. You see.
Okay.
You see. Yes. Yeah. And then another thing, the dances, all right, which are emphasized to remember when I spoke about the shimmies. Do you remember? Yes. I spoke about the shimmies. Yes. And the word shimmies came during the time of the ragtime. Do you remember? I spoke about ragtime music, right? Yes. So the word shimmies, it came about during the time of ragtime, meaning that the dances that were being done in African female initiation schools and in African temples, you see, they also were transported by African slaves, you see, such that they became part of all the the blues and the ragtime music. It was during ragtime when that type of dancing became known as shimmies. I don't know why they're called shimmies, or because of the word shemaites from Egypt. I don't know, but yes. So they revived again. These days we emphasize the movement of the buttocks, but this time you see now they are no longer in initiation schools, and in temples. Now they are in concerts. Now they are in parties, and all hell broke loose when this type of dancing went out of its context. You see, because this type of dances were not really meant for public. They were in Africa. They were meant for private or occasions. You see, and all hell broke loose. So you can imagine when shimmies were being played during the time of the ragtime, what was happening there. You see, and well, it is understandable why they became exposed to the public, because Africans in diaspora had lost their African institutions like initiation schools. They had lost their shrines where they used to perform these fertility dances. So now they were now in a different context. They were now in a different environment, in a different setting, and they wanted to revive their heritage. So they had no choice. They were not allowed to in private, because if they're going to be in private, they're going to escape. So the only way was to do it in public, to a point that even when the slaves, they did this kind of African heritage in public. This is why this kind of dances now, they are now found in public. And music was evolving. This shimmies also evolved. They are still evolving. For example, there's a type of music called bounce music, which is a subgenre of hip hop. You see, so bounce music was started in the south, in the south of the state, like in Louisiana state there. So in music, these shimmies, they evolved into what they refer to as twerking. So that's how twerking came about. Yeah. You see, and then there's also a genre called dancehall music or raka. You see, yeah. And these shimmies now they've evolved, and in raka they are referred to as whining. You see, okay. So twerking and the whining have got African roots. You see. From the African temple and African initiation schools. Yes.
Okay. All right. Thank you. That brings us to a close to this session. Thank you to Mr. Arnold Maiwongenkala. Thank you very much. And to you for listening. We appreciate your support. If you enjoyed today's podcast, please don't forget to like, subscribe on YouTube, follow us on Spotify and iTunes and all the other places that you get your podcast from. Thank you.
Zingfihle